Welcome to another episode of the Communities of Character podcast. I'm Jennifer Hogan, a former character coach for the Hope Institute, and I currently serve as principal of Hoover High School in Alabama. On today's episode, you'll get to hear from Dr. Antonio Cooper, who is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction in Vestavia Hills City Schools. Dr. Cooper was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama, where he went to Wenonah High School, and then he attended Alcorn State University, an HBCU, on a full athletic football scholarship. He earned a bachelor's in elementary education and a master's in guidance and counseling, and realizing that he wanted his reach to extend even further, Antonio earned both a specialist and doctoral degree. Professionally, he served in many roles, as well as serving as a consultant, motivational speaker, adjunct professor, and author. He was accepted into the University of Alabama Superintendent Academy, and he's a member of the inaugural cohort of Hope Fellows with the Hope Institute. Dr. Cooper believes that this world belongs to everyone in it, and that no one should sell themselves short thinking they don't have a shot at achieving their dreams. And you will hear his beliefs resonate throughout this interview today. Can you do me a favor? If you find this podcast inspiring or helpful, please leave a review and text someone who you know will also find value in this podcast. Share it on social media and tag me, and prepare yourself for a value-packed episode with Dr. Antonio Cooper. Hi, Antonio. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, and I just can't wait to get into our conversation today because you have a really unique perspective to share with our listeners today. You come with a central office perspective in the Vestavia Hills City Schools district. You've got 9 schools in your district, and 3 of them are national schools of character. So would you share what it means to be a leader in a district that supports and values character development across all its schools?
I guess the cliche answer is that it means a lot. But it's true. It really does mean a lot to be a leader in a district that supports and values character development across all of its schools. The simple knowledge of the fact is extra motivating to get out of bed and come to work during rough days and weeks. All educators have those. Educators, schools, and school systems oftentimes get lost in test scores, which increases the awareness and focus of classroom teaching and learning. Don't get me wrong, that is extremely important. But we have to ensure that students are learning at high levels. But that alone doesn't solve the issue that I see in this country or in this world. We have a lot of very intelligent adults out there who lack character and do not adhere to any core values. I believe K-12 learning has to do its part in the education and exposure of those 2 components. And knowing that all of the leaders in my system sharing that understanding makes me feel great. I know we're making strides in exposing all of our students to positive core values that they can use for the rest of their lives to go along with the high quality education that we do provide.
Yes, I bet it is extremely rewarding to go to work every day and know that the leaders in your district are committed to character development and growing good people. So character.org says that adults grow in character by working collaboratively and sharing best practices and participating in decision making. So we would love to hear some examples of how your district provides these opportunities.
Well, each one of our schools have sent multiple teams through the Hope Institute. And during those meetings, those educators collaboratively create plans to move their school forward in the field of character development. They then take those plans back to their schools and discuss them with their leadership teams. They also include parents and students via surveys during this process. And I think it's awesome that we're giving students and parents voice in this whole process. They take all of that information into account when they're updating their character education plans. We also follow the same process with some diversity work that we're doing in partnership with the Hope Institute in reference to core values. And we added an extra step of giving every school an opportunity to present their diversity plans to each other. And we allow some time for feedback and just follow-up questions. And we also do that in our administrative meetings with our principals so that they can bounce ideas off of each other.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned Hope Institute. We know that you're a Hope Fellow, and that's a pretty powerful organization. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that because there's great power in leading by example, and it's important to model the behavior that we want to see in others. And as we talk today about the importance of everyone in a school or district to share that responsibility for developing and implementing and modeling ethical character, would you talk a little bit about how that partnership that Vestavia Hills City Schools has with the Hope Institute been beneficial to students and staff in your district?
Oh, let me count the way. The Hope Institute has 100% buy-in from all of our school administrators, and that's central office administrators, building level administrators, in reference to principals and assistant principals. And to be honest with you, that's very unique. It's hard to get 85% buy-in most of the times, and for our system to actually have 100% buy-in from all of our administrators. I mean, this past year, we've taken our first central office team through the Hope Institute.
Wow.
To which we went through year one. And to be honest with you, we went in with our hands, just held out like, okay, how can we better ourselves as a system? We went in with the mindset of trying to look through the lens of how can we learn from the presenters that are coming, to present to the year one cohort on ways that we can be better support to our schools. And we also looked at our beliefs and our mission and our vision to see if there was anything there that we needed to be able to update going through that process. And I mean, our superintendent and our assistant superintendent both were a part of that first year cohort. We valued it so much that we actually took 2 central office teams through year one this year so that we could get a total of 8 administrators on board. So we had, like I said, the assistant superintendent, the superintendent, myself, I went through it. I think I'm a year one champion. I've probably gone through year one at least 5 or 6 times, maybe. But I was on it, as well as our director of student services, who oversees our guidance and counseling department as well. And we had our director of technology, so that our technology department could be incorporated and involved in all of the core values that we are offering in the system, so that when they do enter those buildings and they interact with students, they will know to speak the language as well, and they'll know some background behind that language. Our fine arts director was a part of it as well. And so we were really, and our athletic director too, forgot about that one. Our athletic director, she was a part of the team as well, because we wanted to make sure that we're encompassing it all. We also did another unique thing this year, and we created a secondary counselor team of sorts to be able to go through year one. And we kind of took the same approach that our central office did, which was, just go in and see what comes with it. See if we can come up with a comprehensive secondary guidance counseling core values or touchstone. And I do believe that's where they ended on. They're actually creating a touchstone to be able to move forward so that all of our students and on all 4 of our campuses, our 2 middle schools and 2 high school campuses, can be hearing a common language. And on top of that common language, it can be built upon from 6th grade through 12th grade, so that they won't be hearing the same thing as the years go by. Instead, they'll be hearing new layers to the onion that is of the core values and the touchstone that they have. I oversee our system's federal programs funding as well, and several other grants. So when we first started with all of our schools participating in Hope cohorts 4 years ago, we used grant funding to send a team from each school. Well, as the years have gone by, the building principals have valued the process so much so that every school decided to fund their own team, along with the teams that we were already putting through with the grant. So they really do value these cohorts, and they just feel like every year they send a new team, they're able to enhance and update their character education plans. Like I mentioned in your previous question, we ventured off into hosting our own local appreciation of diversity sessions in partnership with the Hope Institute. And we pretty much just ride in the car with you guys on that. So they are the vehicle that helps us with the core values as far as diversity is concerned. And with them being the vehicle, we modeled the platform that Hope has established, and it has been going pretty well for the last 3 years. So we have a year one cohort and we have a year 2 cohort. And the cohorts consist of all 9 campuses and a team of 4. Administrators, one of those people. And we have some of the presenters that present during the Hope Institute. So Clifton Tauber has been with us for the last 3 years, and we have him scheduled for this fall. to come in and just talk about habits of the heart and just laying the foundation of core values as it relates to diversity and things of that nature. And what we have is that all of our schools will bring in the work that they've done in the regular Hope Institute on core values. They'll bring in their established core values, and we just really meet and talk about ways into which they can apply those core values to show an appreciation of diversity. And why I keep using that phrase is because it's in our mission and vision, where that's one of the things that we strive to do in our system and show that we have a great appreciation of diversity in all forms and fashions. This platform has also given us the opportunity to amplify student voice at every level. During our Hope Diversity sessions, we actually have a student panel in. And for the last 2 years, the first 2 years, we decided to go with students who were seniors, and we didn't meet with them until maybe like April. So they didn't have anything to lose. Right. And so we just asked them a bunch of questions. And the conversation just flowed from there. I joke all the time saying I get to be, Sarah Jesse Raphael or Montel or Oprah. I have my little cue cards with my questions. And for the last 3 years, I've yet to be able to ask all of the questions that I had written out. And that's because the teachers and the administrators that are in the crowd, they start chiming in with questions. And it's very empowering to the students because they see these seasoned adults, these degreed individuals in this highly esteemed school system actively taking notes based off of what they're saying, and they're actively putting those things into their plans. And so, those students were the pioneers in this work. We also had an alumni group of students that we interviewed, and we also had a diverse panel of educators that we've interviewed. But this most recent cohort that we had go through the 2022-2023 year was different. I was a little nervous because we were just branching out based off of the comments that we received from the students in previous years. And we decided to go away from the model of just using seniors because we heard from the first two groups of seniors of, well, I sure wish I could see this done and experience it, firsthand, but I'm going to college or, I'm graduating, so I won't be there. And so we said, hey, let's talk to students who will be here next year. So this past year, we had juniors and sophomores on the panel. And their conversations were very deep and they were great. And the thing about it is now that they can hold us accountable because they'll be walking the halls next year. And, we want to make sure we're putting our best foot forward and showing that we do value what they're saying. And we have indeed put some things into place to make them feel valued, seen, and feel like they have a place at the school, in all of our schools. And we doubled down on that. So not only did we have a high school panel of juniors and sophomores, this past year we also had a middle school panel of 7th and 8th grade. And they had their own separate time. And we gave them time. I asked them questions, and I wasn't able to finish those questions either. And we allowed their parents to come. And, it wasn't a dry eye in the parent section. And, we got a lot of good quality learning and PD from, human beings that don't have any types of degrees or, they're not professionals in anything other than just being themselves. So we got raw information, and that went really well. And we're very appreciative of the Hope Institute for being the vehicle for that and just helping us to kind of get those thoughts into actions. A lot of times people do a lot of planning and, you get so inundated in planning that you never really get to execute the plan. And with this, we just started building the plane while it was in the air, to be honest with you. And it's been great. And with that being said, we actually were recognized last year for our system in the work that I just talked about with diversity. And we got from character.org a Promising Practice Award.
That's awesome.
For that. So, they've positively impacted our entire system. Students are more aware of positive core values and have put several things into practice. They've done school surveys, like I mentioned before, and started initiatives and raised funds to address areas of improvements. I'm talking about the students have done this. Since this body of work, our students have actually started clubs in their schools to make sure they're seen and valued and feel like they have somewhere to belong in the building. and our educators have learned the importance of character education and how everyone can benefit from a stronger focus and foundation of it in schools.
I love that. And I have been taking so many notes as you've been talking. I was a little bit aware of some of the things that y'all were doing in your district, but these are some really, really good ideas and well deserved of your promising practices recognition. And in the show notes, I'll be sure to include information to our listeners so they can link up to your district website and find out some more information. And we'll talk about your contact information, but I'll include that for sure because I feel like we may have some folks who want to pick your brain about how to make this happen. But I love that you said that we can get so caught up in the planning that we hesitate on starting, and that y'all just executed. You just started and you kind of built the plan as you went, and you talked about the iterations and how you work to improve it each year. And I think that's what it's all about. So thank you so much for sharing those stories and sharing those concrete examples, because we really want our listeners to have takeaways from this podcast. And those are some really, really good ones. I'm
Yeah,
also,
that's what we want to teach children, and that's what I want to teach every child that I interact with, is that life is about feeling your way through. A lot of times this was the path that hasn't been taken. You have to carve your own path out. All of us have our own lanes, our own platforms to be able to stand on to see where we want to go. And I think we'll be doing them a disservice by showing them a road that someone else has traveled to go through, so that it'll make everything easier or flow, when at the end of the day that wasn't necessarily their road. And so we just took this philosophy in this, and we're feeling our way through. We know where our hearts and minds are, and we make sure that we lead in with that vulnerability. We do a lot with Brene Brown's work in vulnerability in these diversity sessions. And we just lead that way, and making sure that everybody understands that we're not saying that we're perfect in this. And we're just working at trying to make sure that we're providing opportunities to where everyone feels comfortable and safe.
That's so good, and such good leadership. Such good leadership. Can we talk about support staff? I'm really curious to hear some examples of how support staff, like your bus drivers and your office personnel and lunchroom workers, how have they demonstrated core values and modeled good character for students?
So I want to start out by saying we have some awesome support staff. They are phenomenal. They are continual learners themselves. They're always trying to learn more and grow in more areas than just the area into which they're working. And so they're on board. They're a part of all of the faculty meetings when the teams that are participating in HOPE come back and they present on the core values. I feel like a child is a village. Schools are villages, and every individual has a direct impact with students. So they need to capitalize on those moments. And if everybody's speaking the same language, then you're at a better chance of making sure that the students truly know what the core values are. Now, we're by no means perfect. We actually identified that as one area that we need to actually improve on, is involving our support staff in our work with core values. So far, they've just been there with the staff when we're presenting what we've learned as school teams that have gone through Sanford's Hope Institute, and as school teams who have gone through our school system's appreciation of diversity work on core values. So this next year, we've actually put a focus on, it's just ironic you asked the question, and I can go back and show you agendas and notes from meetings that we had. But our goal is to actually involve them on teams. To actually send them through the Hope Institute along with our teachers and our administrators to both the diversity meetings and to the year 1, 2, and 3 cohorts with Sanford on Sanford's campus. We did start this year by putting together a parent council of sorts, diversity council on our system level, where we have parents, we have teachers in our system, administrators in our system, and we do have 1 or 2 support staff on our panel, and that's been very well received. We've gotten a lot of information. We have been sitting on pretty much a gold mine of information and just resources that we really didn't even know was under our noses to be able to push forward this work. So that's our goal moving forward, is to have them more involved on the planning side of it as well.
That's awesome. Well, from a district level, how do you ensure that all staff receive training on their role in the character development initiative and understand the part that they play in its success? And specifically, will you also share how new teachers are inducted into your district so that they understand the culture where character education is a priority?
When we first started working with, when Hope Institute first came around, I wondered why, the teams were so small and how you had to go through cohorts and, that whole process. Is actually genius. You take those small groups through so that you can really dial in deep and get deep into the weeds of what's going on, have them be able to get together and meet with the masses and be able to put the plan together. And then the next year, send another team through. I think that's great. And so as a system, like I mentioned before, we've been paying for at least one. We pay for 2 teams per school for the last 4 years. But the schools have put in and matched us in a lot of areas where they've paid for 2 teams. And the majority of our principals' goals are to, main goal is to have all of their staff go through Hope Institute. In fact, just had a conversation with leadership of Hope, and I facilitated a conversation between the leadership of Hope and one of our school principals. They want to have like mini sessions on campus for, several of the teachers to be able to just get an introduction to it. And then they want to put them on a time frame of letting them know what year they'll go and what cohort they'll actually participate in to make sure that everybody is exposed in it. But as it stands right now, they are taking the team through every year until they've gotten their whole staff to go through. And some of them have gotten to that point or close to it, and they're starting to send groups that have been through it already go through it again, just to continue to improve their touchstone and their core values. Some of our national schools of character actually have updated their core values since becoming National School of Character. So it doesn't stop there. And as far as our new teachers are concerned, we actually have a 3.5-day new teacher professional development session that we invite all of our new certified staff, so that's administrators, counselors, and teachers to. And I've been to several school systems, and this is not your traditional new teacher program where we go through payroll, benefits, and how to clock in and, how to order supplies. We dive in deep, heavy, and hard, and we start off with our mission, vision, and beliefs, as well as our strategic plan. And all of that's covered by our superintendent. As well as sharing that, he shares his heart and desire for our students, and then he introduces every administrator in our system to the new employees. After that, we dive into how our beliefs fit within each one of our strategic plan goals. And our 3 goals surround goal number 1 is teaching and learning. Goal number 2 is social emotional learning. And then goal number 3 is organizational framework. And so when we go over all 3 of those goals for all of the new hires, we share how character education in our work with core values and our work with Hope Institute is an integral component of each one of them. I mean, you have to teach the core values. So that's teaching and learning. Social emotional learning is how to be able to internalize those core values and apply them to your life. And then the framework are the plans. What do we do as a monthly focus? How do we have our teachers meet on these things to make sure that what we're saying we're doing, we're actually doing, how we're holding ourselves accountable to those things. And so we have those. Then we also go into detail about the work we're doing with Hope Institute in developing and maintaining those relevant core values and how we're using them to show an appreciation for diversity, like I mentioned earlier, which is one of the main pillars in our mission statement. And then on the last day of our new teacher orientation, we release them at the halfway point to their individual schools, where their leadership teams at those schools take them on a deep dive through the work that they've done with core values, and they go into more of the professional development that we actually present to them during the new teacher. So after the superintendent goes, after we talk about core values and character education, we take them through our pretty much our whole setup of how we do teaching and learning and how we view teaching and learning in Vestavia Hills City Schools.
I love to hear that you talk about how the superintendent goes through mission, vision, and beliefs, and and also talks about how character education is integral to the three system goals of teaching and learning, social emotional learning, and the organizational framework. Because I've been on the receiving end, I'm sure you have too, and probably led some of those new teacher orientations that were more about, who does what in a school and kind of the nuts and bolts. But I
Mhm.
think even more important than those sorts of things truly is the core values and the mission and beliefs and vision of the school and or district. So kudos to y'all for taking that approach. And it's just good leadership. And so let's talk a little bit about leaders because they have a great impact on culture. And the culture of each school, you only have 9 schools in your district, but as you know, the culture of each school is unique. So
Mhm.
would you talk about the qualities that your district looks for when you're hiring leaders that are in charge and going to shape and or strengthen a school's culture of character?
Yes, we look for the best of the best first and foremost. No matter where they come from, no matter what they look like, we want them to work here in our system. We look for individuals who first have strong core values themselves, with a proven track record of evidence of those values. And then we frame our questions in a way to which everyone can see what we value. Pretty much similar to what you just discussed about our new teacher meeting. We want to frame the information that we're first introducing them to, the first time we talk to them. We want to frame them in a way to where they can pick up what we're putting down, what we value, what we're looking for, what we expect. And we do the same thing in our questions when we're talking to or, looking at courting new leadership in our system. And we involve every facet that you can have. I mean, we've had students on our administrative interview panels. We most definitely have parents and members from the community on those panels as well. Because, like you said, even though we have 9 schools, we have 9 individually unique
Mm-hmm.
situations and locations that have their own core values for a reason. They have their own way
Mm-hmm.
of doing things for a reason. One would say 9 schools in the school system is small, and I would agree. But even at that, each one of our schools has their very own identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to make sure that we have parents and students has made having a major input on, the qualities and characteristics of, the individual that we would bring into those schools. And we know that the candidates see that when we're going through the interview process. We know that they feel that. And if they're up for the job, we've hired some awesome administrators in our system.
Well, in my work with Hope Institute, I know that there are districts where central office mandates character education, and in those situations, implementation may be much more uneven. Well,
Mhm.
all of the schools in your district participate in Hope Institute, and you've mentioned having 100% buy-in from the current school leaders. However, it was not a mandate top down from central office. So I'm curious, where did that sense of urgency come from, and how do you help to keep the fire alive in your district?
That's another great question. I mean, personally, I've been participating in the Hope Institute since their first pilot program several years
Mhm.
ago, well before they started offering it to the entire state. We met in one small classroom, and we were really feeling our way through. And I appreciate them for allowing us to be on board, as you all felt your way.
Mhm.
And during that time, the school where I served as principal, the elementary school, was in need of a change. We were trying to find our identity as far as character education was concerned. And we realized at that time that the cookie cutter programs really just didn't work for us because we were a very diverse school as far as the populations to which we served. And one cookie cutter method just wasn't working for us. And so we decided that core values was the answer to that. And so in the 3 years of working with the Hope Institute, our discipline decreased over 90%.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds fake, but I can show you the facts. Our the data rather, our student attendance, it increased, and so did our staff morale. Um, After that work, I was promoted to a central office position in that same school system and was able to expose the work that we did at the elementary school with all of the schools in that county. And there's 2 school systems in that county. So I was able to go to the neighboring school system, the city schools, and be able to share some of that work with them as well. And as a result, several of them signed up and started, to experience similar success. When I came to Vestavia, I saw that a few of our schools were already involved in the Hope Institute. I spoke with the other administrators about the impact, and they did a little research of their own, of course, and they were on board. We didn't have to twist their arms or anything. So at that moment, they found out that it had a financial component. And being a principal, I understand how you have to, really budget your money and be very intentional with where your budget, what you put your goals as far as your budget is concerned. And so I decided to apply for the State Department's High Hopes grant so that wouldn't even come out of their pocket. And I applied so that we can fund all of our schools' participation in the Institute. And I've been applying for the past 4 years, and we've gotten it every year. Wow. And that's been the main driving factor as to how we've been able to pay for the schools to do that. As a result, several of the schools in my old system were recognized as national schools and schools of character, including the one that I served as principal at. And several others received the Promise and Practice recognition. And like you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, here in Vestavia, three out of our 9 campuses have earned a National School of Character recognition, and several others have been recognized as schools of promise and practice. And also mentioned that our system, we received a recognition as a system of promise and practice for the work that we're doing in the area of diversity.
That's awesome. And you've been at this for a while. And I just have to ask, if you knew then what you know now about building a culture of character with all of your years of service and different positions, what would you go back and tell your younger self as an education leader?
Well, I'm still 22. So, I mean,
aren't we all?
Well, no, I would tell myself, and I would have to provide some learning supports, because the statement I'm about to make is a rather big statement, and it is: character education is literally the plate that everything else goes on top of. And it is, it is, and not should be, the foundation of all learning. It is the foundation of all learning. I recently read a book called The Book of Joy by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And both of them agree on one of the top priorities that all countries have in common, and that is that they value education of their youth. And they were talking about how can we spread joy in the world. And one place that they said that we could do that is through the educational system, because every country values education. And they also agree that the primary way to increase joy around the world is for all education systems across the globe to place a special emphasis on core values. And while that may be a little deep to tell a younger version of myself, I would offer that it first starts with me being an example of positive core values at all times amongst my colleagues and while working with students. And that means, being vulnerable enough to admit when I haven't been my best, to my students, and being vulnerable enough to admit it to my colleagues as well. And so it first starts with the professionals in the building, embracing those core values and living them out every day that they walk into the building, and showing the students those things, and then instilling those same core values in the students. And I do believe and agree with Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu that's how you change the world. You change the world through the privilege that we all have as educators, and that is that we get to work with an amazing population of human beings, and that is, adolescents, from the age of 4 now to 18. We get to be with them for every day for 180 something odd days. And during that time, if we can just teach them how to be better people, how to be more aware of their surroundings, how to be more aware of the people in their surroundings, and how to genuinely care for those people and actually have values that are positive for themselves, I do believe that's how we change the world.
That's so good and such good advice. And I just thank you for sharing that, and sharing that resource too. I will link the book in the show notes, and I'm going to order that today for myself. It sounds like something I want to read.
It's a
And
long book. I can tell you that much.
it sounds great. It sounds really good. But as we get ready to wrap up this episode, I feel confident that our listeners are going to want to reach out to you. They may have heard something that resonated with them today and they want to connect with you. And I'll be sure to include your information in the show notes. But share with us, what are the best ways for our listeners to engage with you, Antonio?
So is this where I list my Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal? Because I am a public educator.
There you go.
I'm kidding. No, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, all at Team Cooper Inc. That's Team Cooper Inc.
Terrific.
You can find me on any of those, and YouTube as well.
Okay, I'll be sure to put that in the show notes. But I just thank you so much for being here today. And I appreciate your sharing your unique perspective as a district leader in a district that has a truly comprehensive commitment to building character. You, Antonio, have the balcony view, and I've enjoyed learning from you today. And listeners, if you're hearing this message, you've listened to this episode all the way to the end, and I thank you so much for that. Be sure to reach out on social media and let us know which topics you'd like for us to cover in future episodes. Thanks again, everyone. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Communities of Character podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others and post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. Thanks again and take care.